The race for QB-1 will be a battle, but Diego Pavia's knowledge of the scheme gives him a leg up. Let's go.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Today, on this Tuesday, we'll talk about the battle for QB1. Diego Pavia's knowledge of the system gives him a leg up. Also, how do the two quarterbacks fit in the run scheme, or how they do fit in the run scheme will also play a part in this race. And then the corner infielders are going to provide a huge charge in the lineup for the Vandy Boys. We'll talk more about that as well. But thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube as a part of the podcast Locked On Podcast Network. The podcast Locked On Network, yeah. So your team every day. So that's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, Diego Pavia had a leg up in this quarterback race as soon as he transferred. Why? Well, that's because he has a master's degree in Tim Beck's offense. And that in and of itself provides you an instant leg up in a race to where there's no clear-cut incumbent starter. Your entire quarterback room left. So that leaves you with two transfers, two freshmen, and a guy that was probably never going to play. And then, of course, actually three transfers, I should say, because the top two quarterbacks in New Mexico State, Pavia and they came over. Nate Johnson came over from Utah. He was the first domino in the quarterback race. So I talked about that in an earlier episode of kind of like how he was the first transfer and just kind of what advantages he has as far as being in the system or being able to be in spring practice before Pavia. And Pavia is going to be a summer enrollee. But I think that with Diego Pavia, I think for him, his knowledge of this system and what he displayed in his knowledge of the system last year at New Mexico State last season is going to be the thing that kind of lets you. It's going to be the thing that kind of separates him in the end. If he can continue and push that knowledge further, he will end up being the starting quarterback for Vanderbilt in 2024. Because there's a lot of other intangibles that he has. His toughness is one thing that kind of sets him apart. I don't know about Nate Johnson. I'm sure Nate Johnson has a lot of similar qualities, a lot of similar leadership qualities. But when you look at the way Diego Pavia commands a huddle, that's, I think that's a little bit more as of right now than Nate Johnson, because I think he's got a little more experience. But that's like a sub point. We'll talk kind of how that fits into how he fits in the run scheme. But right now, the biggest thing, the biggest separator again is the knowledge of the system, the checks, the anticipation, the Tim Beck's trust in Diego Pavia, and Pavia's ability to make checks at the line. He's familiar with the reads in the RPO game, the option game. I think that's what makes him such a dangerous runner. And just the fact that there's that familiarity of he knows what Tim Beck expects and wants to call and how he wants to structure a game. When that Auburn game comes around later on in the season, he's going to know exactly how the game plan is structured for that, because it'll probably be pretty similar. Because they have New Mexico State's entire team, it seems like. But, you can't understate what that means as far as being able to do that, because he can anticipate Tim Beck's calls. He can make checks at the line. I think Tim Beck will give him that freedom this season if he is indeed the guy. Also, when he's working out with people in the summer and coaches aren't around, like if Nate Johnson doesn't learn it is at the speed that he probably needs to in the spring, guess who's going to be calling shots during those player-led workouts, those player-led throwing sessions and installs? It's going to be Diego Pavia, right? And when you have a guy like that takes charge, it's only beneficial to the skill guys around him who are all new, that it's going to be whoever they have a comfort level with. And naturally, it's going to be the guy that knows exactly what he's doing, how to do it. And he's going to be able to tell those receivers, he's going to be able to be like, yo, Jeremiah, look, I need you here on this concept because I'm going to throw it right to this spot. And if you're there, you're going to make big plays. Like, we've got to have you speed cutting on the dig at 10, rolling down to 9.5, because that throw is going to be tight against this coverage, whatever the concept may be. I'm just giving you arbitrary schemes here, but like being able to coach the receivers, being able to tell the backs, hey, I need XYZ from you, so that this run scheme can really work, so that this option run scheme can really work. And that's valuable to a coach when you have basically an extension of yourself. You basically cloned yourself, put shoulder pads on, you gave yourself the ability to throw and put yourself out there on the field. When you have a guy like Pavia who's been with you and knows what you want, knows what you need to accomplish, and knows your schemes, how they're designed and what they're designed to do, and how they're designed to attack defenses. And that's extremely valuable, because now he can play with more anticipation. And if you have that anticipation, obviously you're more accurate because you're throwing to spots, right? And you're more confident in your throws, so you're going to hang in the pocket a little bit longer. You've got and he's got some of the skills that go along with it, that if you put some smarts to it and you put some knowledge there between the ears, you can do some dangerous things. And playing within the system and thinking outside the box with the system and saying, okay, being able to go in game to Tim Beck and say, okay, hey, look, the defense is giving us this. We need to attack them with that, or like, hey, we've got them on the ropes. Let's continue to do that. And those two are in lockstep. Not saying Nate Johnson could never get to that point. He certainly could. But like, as far as like next year or this coming season, I should say, it's already here, but like this coming season, like that's what it's going to come down to. And maybe it's a thing where Nate Johnson comes in, he ends up sitting a year and learning what to do behind Pavia, because I think Pavia has less eligibility than Nate Johnson. So it's going to be one of those things where it could be a natural progression. And so that's the most valuable thing that you can have, is basically a master's degree in the system, because he's only going to get more comfortable. They're only going to get, you're going to take some of what Tim Beck's able to do with Pavia. And this is the plus to having a guy experienced within your system. He's going to be able to, all of the things I just mentioned, like being able to anticipate what Pavia is thinking out there, and he's gonna be able to call plays based on what he knows that Pavia is thinking. Pavia is going to be able to make some of these throws because he can anticipate the play calls and he can coach the guys up. But also, what you're going to be able to do now, if you know the base stuff, and if you even know the mid-level stuff, you can start kind of building off things. Like, you can start having plays off of plays, right? You can have the base play, couple of wrinkles, a counter, and a gadget off of one scheme, right? With somebody who is completely new to the system, maybe you can't do that as quickly. Eventually, yes, you could probably get there, but you can't do that right away. And that gives you layers and layers of things you can do that will give defensive fits and that will give you the best chance to win. And that's what Clark Lee is looking for, because going 2-10 in 2023 has made his seat red hot, which is why he's made all these changes. Kudos to him, obviously. But, with Diego Pavia, giving your coaching staff the opportunity to be able to implement some higher level things only gives you a leg up to your competition, starting with Virginia Tech. And it only gives your guys more confidence, and it allows you to make plays, and it will snowball from there. The confidence will snowball from there. So I think as of right now, you go back and forth and you analyze every aspect of trying to predict who quarterback one's going to be and how well they're going to do. Like, be able to project, okay, this is how I think that this season is going to go based on this little bit of information. And based on this bit of information, I think this gives them a competitive leg up against their competition because of the knowledge coming in to the system. It's going to be, there's some other aspects to it, but I think that's a component that if you're looking at this race and you're saying, okay, you're trying to keep score of who has a leg up in this category, this category, this category, this category, this Pavia, this round goes to Pavia. Knowledge of the system. This round easily goes to Diego Pavia. And so that's going to be kind of fun to watch how that unfolds and how Nate Johnson handles that, how the other quarterbacks on the roster kind of handle that deficiency and things like that. So we'll see. Only time will tell. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about now the next component is the run scheme. We'll we'll touch on this because we probably won't have very long to touch on it, but we'll keep going with it and we'll see how these quarterbacks fit into the run scheme. So stay tuned. All right. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right. I hope you hit all of your bets on the Super Bowl. If you didn't, that's okay, because you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. So bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and many, many more, and much, much more. So just visit. I was going to say just wait, but you don't want to wait on this. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Welcome back. It is segment number 2 of the Locked On Vandy podcast of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. And speaking of every day, I want to thank you, everydayers, for making all of this possible, right? So continue to jump on board. This is going to be, the goal of this thing is to become the premier Vanderbilt sports podcast. That's the goal. You everydayers could make that happen very, very easily. So let's get up to 200 subscribers by the midpoint of the baseball season. That's doable. That's very doable. So we're going to get you there. But anyway, talking about the quarterback race right now, because spring practice is right around the corner and things are really kind of shaking out in the quarterback race. And there's a lot of components to this thing. It's going to be a tight race all the way to kickoff against the Hokies. And you can't carry this thing into the Virginia Tech game. If you're playing Alcorn State first instead of Virginia Tech, okay, maybe. But you got to go into Tech. You got to go into the Tech game, the Virginia Tech game, with a starter. And then if it goes south on you, you can use Alcorn State to kind of reset your competition and see what you got. But anyway, how do these quarterbacks fit into the run scheme? That is the golden question when it comes to this. When it comes to this race, okay? Because what Tim Beck wants to do, he wants to figure out ways to keep defenses off balance. RPOs is one of them. We'll talk about how they fit in that aspect on another episode. But the quarterback +1 run game is something that I think is an important factor that Tim Beck wants to have in his system if he can. Now, he's more of a chameleon type coordinator, so he's going to fit what he does around his quarterback. All good coaches should do that, by the way. And he's going to make sure that they fit the best. And what he's going to do with the quarterback +1 run game, he really likes those schemes. He's going to figure out who gives him the best shot at it. Now, he's got 2 really good quarterbacks on his hands, so I think he's going to be and both of them do fit into the run game really, really well. So I think he's going to be aggressive in that regard. So I look forward to that, because one of my favorite things about football is getting a quarterback involved in the run game and him being effective, because it's a weapon. It absolutely is a weapon. It was a weapon for the Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes when he breaks out for runs. Lamar Jackson obviously won the MVP because of it. He's just an all-around great quarterback, but like him being so explosive in the run game really kind of did that for him. So how do these quarterbacks fit into this run game? Well, Diego Pavia, the knowledge of the system, ding, 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 it goes to him. Bob, there you go. All right. But how do they fit in the run game? Who fits where? When it comes to straight ahead quarterback power, things like that, like if you're going to focus on jet sweep and the power read off of the jet sweep, I think they both fit really, really well. Pavia is probably more of a straight downhill runner. I think he's probably more of your power runner than Nate Johnson is. I think Nate Johnson, if you're really kind of focusing on like quarterback sweeps and like outside runs or zone reads or things like that, where he's reading a backside in and getting out, or the zone triple that these teams like to do as kind of your RPO / quarterback run option stuff. I think Nate Johnson's going to be really, really good. I think, honestly, Nate Johnson's really good at running power too. I just think Diego Pavia is just more of I think he's got more of like a downhill presence and that toughness I mentioned in segment 1, where he can really kind of affect you and just kind of wear on you and wear you down as kind of like that power guy. And I don't want to throw this comparison out there, because this is a really elite college quarterback, especially in the run game. But like style wise, as a runner, he's kind of like Tebow. Now Tebow's a unit. So like, I'm not like Pavia and Tebow are like two like totally different statured quarterbacks. Tebow's a freaking unit, but they play very similarly, right? Pavia thinks he's 6'6", 260, pure twisted steel. If you were to ask him, that's probably what he'd say, and he's definitely not that. But he plays like he is, and that's what you really that's if you're going to run quarterback power, that's what you want. And going back to the knowledge of the scheme, he knows, because he's run this a lot. He knows just how far to take that mesh point before he makes his decision. He can really put those guys, those read keys in a lot of indecision because of how long he can hold the mesh point. Again, I think if you're focusing on that downhill running with the quarterback, I think you need a guy that can hold defenders with that. And I think it's going to circle back to knowledge of like how these schemes operate. But if it's just like reading a guy and just beating him athletically, I think your advantage goes to Nate Johnson, because Nate Johnson's smoother, taller. He just kind of glides through there, man. He's just real explosive, real sudden. I don't think he's somebody that's going to flat run you over like Pavia would in a quarterback power. But like, there's other things that I think Johnson excels at in that quarterback run game, and also moving the pocket. I think he's a little bit better moving the pocket as well. And I don't know if you like how you would classify that. I guess that would be in like the sprint out passing, but like the ability to use his legs on the edge and on the perimeter, I think Nate Johnson has the advantage. But One of the things I saw that Tim Beck liked to do with Pavia, and I think if Pavia wins this job, you'll see. I think the quarterback run game is going to be based on who wins the job with the other factors, because no matter who he has, he's going to run them. But it's going to come down to, okay, if Pavia wins it, I like this set of run plays. If Nate Johnson wins the job, I like this set of run plays. I could very easily see that. And they're different styled runners, and they're different style players. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think if you flipped a coin with these two, I think you'd be pretty successful. But Pavia is good. You know, Pavia runs tough. Pavia runs hard. Nate Johnson is just so dang fast, man. He just pulls the ball. And he's gone. Right, there was that play against Florida in the opener where he took a zone read. Again, he really read the mesh well. He really held the mesh well on that. Got that defensive end to commit, and then just exploded past him. And he was up on the third level before anybody knew he had the ball. Like that. That's how sudden he is. He put a subtle move on a safety, left him in the dust, and just basically waltzed in untouched from about 30 yards out. And so that's a weapon too. That's a deadly weapon in the run game. So this round, I think it's a draw, honestly, and that's a cop-out. I realize that, but I think it's a draw because I think it's going to come down to, well, they're going to, like, whoever's in there, he's going to tailor the run game for them, and he may even have a run package for whoever the backup is. So this might end up being a moot point, but this is something you should get excited about because I think they're going to. This is where Vandy's going to get some advantages in the against their opponents, is in the +1 quarterback run game. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be awesome to watch. So we're going to take another quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little baseball because it is coming up rapidly. And when I say rapidly, this weekend. So stay tuned for that. All right. This episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. That's right. Passion, drive, patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy. Is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. eBay Motors, guys. All right, last and final segment here on the Locked On Vandy podcast. Opening day is Friday. Get excited. Because I know I am. This is going to be fun to watch because Tim Corbin is going to present a lot of problems for opposing teams. He has some problems of his own that he has to figure out. And these are some really, as a coach, like, you welcome these problems, right? Because like he has, like, let's take a look at the corner infielders, okay? For example, there's a lot of power at those positions. You can't play them all. Unless you play some guys in the outfield and DH. But like Diaz and Maldonado looks like they're going to it's looking like they're going to be the opening day starters at first and third. Maldonado at first, Diaz at third. But you have Austin Fort, you have Matt Austin Fort, and you have Braden Holcomb sitting behind them. All four of those guys have incredible power. And all four of those guys can hit and can tear. And basically, I think the thing I'm most excited about with this opening series, honestly, is them is seeing how the lineup is constructed, where Davis Diaz fits in, where Chris Maldonado fits in the lineup, like how these guys come in, right? Diaz is somebody, he has played in 121 games over the season. He's been a starter essentially since day one. He's gotten, his power numbers have gotten better. He's torn the cover off the ball in the Cape Cod League. Like, he has a 15% strikeout rate in both seasons coming in. I mean, he is somebody that is just ready to break out. I mean, if he hasn't broken out already, he's ready to take it to the next level. And I think he's going to be one of those that can. And he's going to be somebody that you're going to be looking for. You're going to be looking at in the draft going, okay, that makes sense. Like, he's somebody that can, and he's somebody that has a chance to improve where he's picked too. And he is in the top 100 college players for the MLB draft. So that's something that is good. And the benefits of that is, like, he's got this season to improve his draft stock. So he could play himself into the first round of the MLB draft. Like, that's where I think we're looking at with Davis Diaz. Maldonado comes in as a sophomore, had a monster freshman year. He moved to the corner infield, but he's somebody that hit 310 last year, and was, again, that led the team in batting average. So he's somebody that can come in and steady bat, can knock the ball all around the yard. I don't know that he's knocking out of the yard at this moment, but he's somebody that's going to knock it around the yard, and he's going to be somebody that gets on base and drives and runs. Holcomb is somebody that's really going to provide another charge. And I can honestly see Holcomb being a guy that when he gets in there, you're going to have to keep figuring out how we can keep him in the lineup, right? You've got to figure out ways. Eventually it's going to come down to, okay, Braden Holcomb, you can't keep him out of the lineup, right? He's top 40 in the freshman class, 493 average with 11 home runs coming out of high school. He's somebody that is very versatile, corner infielder that can also play outfield, which is valuable because you're going to have some spots available in the outfield too. Because I don't think the outfield's settled except for maybe RJ Austin, and RJ Austin may not be an outfielder. He could end up anywhere. Like, RJ Austin and Braden Holcomb, I think, are two guys that are probably going to be in the lineup a lot, and it may not be the same position every game or even back-to-back games. So I look early on as a possible DH for Holcomb, but he's somebody that provides a lot of pop. Raymond Vasquez, or Velasquez, not Vasquez. Raymond Vasquez is probably really good. I don't know who he plays for, but Velasquez, he's a backup role. He didn't see much action, but like he in the scrimmages, he's been crushing the ball, and he's been somebody that at third has kind of been like working in over there. So he's somebody to watch out for as well. In the corner of the infield, he provides some pop too. So you have Holcomb, who can play anywhere, which is valuable. Velasquez, who, again, has been crushing lately, but he's still got to kind of prove consistency a little bit. He's improved a ton, but like, he's still got to get that in some real game action. Austin Fort is a freshman coming in. He's been putting on a show at batting practice, at least. He played in the New England Collegiate Baseball League. He hit 8 home runs there and 101 at bats. He hit 376. He won best hitter in that league. He is going to start behind some of those guys, but he's somebody that if injuries happen or if there's some shuffling around, or like, he's a left-handed bat. So like, if there's a situation to where he can get in as a pinch hitter maybe, or, find a situation where a pitcher struggles mightily against left-handed hitters, like you throw his bat in the lineup, maybe on like a weekday game, give somebody some rest. Like he's somebody that if given the opportunity, he can mash, but like he's a freshman. So we'll see. Like freshmen are kind of iffy. That's why Holcomb's probably not going to factor in. But anyway, the point is that there's a lot of options, and it's a good problem, and it's a really good problem to have. So it's going to be a lot of power in that side. Those are all guys that can contribute. So anyway, February 16th, Friday, they open the season at the Hawk against Florida Atlantic. Be there, be square. It's going to be great atmosphere for the defending SEC champions. So that's going to do it for us here today. See, time flies when you're having fun. So we are the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Networks. Thank you for making us your first listen. Thank you to the everydayers. You know where to find us at Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms, at Coach Burnt 36 as well. Follow, like, subscribe, all the above. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. But as always, anchor down.